Chapter 2845. Everyone was shocked. Invincible, we are disciples of 8 Desolation. How dare you rob us so brazenly? Are you looking down on us? The disciples of 8 Desolations stared at Invincible with bitter expressions. As disciples of 8 Desolation, they were not afraid of Invincible. Even if Invincible was the last disciple of a God Emperor, they had more than a dozen God Emperors. Most importantly, even though they had the advantage in numbers, Invincible Battle Law was a 7th-order Undying God King Realm expert. They were 100% sure that if they were to clash with Invincible Battle Law, they would definitely lose. Invincible was the last disciple of a God Emperor. Would the God Emperor not give him a life-saving treasure? Just one of his treasures would be enough to kill an 8th-order God King Realm or even a peak God King Realm expert. After all, the Water God Emperor was famous for doting on his last disciple. What do you mean by robbing you? These wind jades are ownerless and are fated with me. Now that I am taking them away, are you trying to use 8 Desolation to pressure me? Do you think the 8 Desolation God Emperors are as shameless as you? Invincible's gaze swept past them as he mocked them. Hearing Invincible's words, the faces of the 8 Desolation disciples darkened. They could not afford to offend Invincible for the sake of 20 wind jades. These treasures are fated with us. All of you, step down. Invincible waved his hand in a flirtatious manner. Brother Long, let's go. Beside Invincible is the daughter of the Yao Wind God Emperor. A middle-aged man among the 8 Desolation disciples said softly, The middle-aged man looked over and his face changed when he saw the sweet young lady beside Invincible. Since these wind jades are fated with young Master Invincible and young Lady Tianxin, we shall not fight with the two of you. The middle-aged man took a deep breath and clasped his fists. Since they could not get the wind jades, there was no need to offend the last disciple of a God Emperor. Sensible. Invincible smiled and said indifferently, Disperse. Farewell. The disciples turned and left with a solemn expression. HM? Why aren't you leaving yet? Didn't you hear what our big brother Woody said? After Ba Huang and the rest left, a young man behind John Fa Woody frowned and shouted when he saw Wang Xian, Yelu Ying, and the rest still standing there. Invincible Battle Law also raised his eyebrows as he glanced over. But suddenly, his expression froze for a moment. Get lost. The young man, who was obviously a lackey, said coldly. Wheel, you're doing pretty well, Shunibyu. When 4th senior sister saw the people from 8 Desolations leaving, she knew that the wind jade wasn't something they could get their hands on. Before she could finish her sentence, Wang Xian's voice was heard from the side. At this moment, Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and looked at Invincible, who was in a daze. Boss Wang. Upon hearing Wang Xian's words, Invincible Fighter shivered a little and reacted. His eyes beamed with excitement. Boss Wang, you really missed me to death. Boo-hoo, Boss Wang. Do you know that my longing for you is like a torrential river? In the next moment, to the astonishment of the crowd, Invincible Fighter pounced on the young man who spoke. Seeing the personal disciple of the Emperor God, a demon-like talent, Invincible Fighter, who even the disciples of 8 Desolations didn't dare to provoke, pouncing on Wang Xian and uttering such exaggerated words, Yelu Ying and the rest were shocked. They looked at the scene in front of them in shock. What's going on? This Invincible Fighter with a strong background knows Wang Xian? Bam. At this moment, they saw Invincible Fighter pouncing on Wang Xian and hugging his thigh. Wow, Boss Wang, it's been 10 years, almost 10 years. We finally meet again. Exaggerated sounds and exaggerated movements. This made Yelu Ying and the rest gape. The personal disciple of the Emperor God, this demon-like talent, Invincible Fighter, is so indecent? Wang Xian is his boss? Chunibyu, you haven't changed at all. Looking at Invincible Fighter's shameless behavior, Wang Xian said with a smile. I'm just excited to see you, boss. Invincible Fighter said excitedly as he stood up and hugged Wang Xian. All right. Wang Xian reached out to stop him from hugging. Psst. Who's that young man? What's going on? Brother Invincible. How did he? Behind them, the group of young and middle-aged men were dumbfounded. They knew Invincible Fighter better than anyone. He was a little unrestrained, arrogant, and narcissistic. He referred to himself as a peerless genius. He even wrote on his personal page, "If the heavens didn't give birth to me, Invincible Fighter, the 8 desolations and 6 harmonies will be like a long night." They had never seen Invincible Fighter concede to anyone. They had even seen Invincible Battle Mage say in front of his own master that it wouldn't be long before Invincible Battle Mage surpassed him. One could imagine how arrogant he was to say such words and look down on others. However, Invincible Fighter did have what it took. A demon-like talent. But now, he was hugging the thigh of a young man and calling him Boss Wang? Who is this young man? Someone who could convince Invincible Fighter? What kind of existence is he? Why did you come to Desolation 6 Directions? Wang Xian patted Invincible Fighter's shoulder and asked with a smile. Sigh, Boss Wang, it's a long story. You should know that my dazzling talent has attracted the attention of the Imperial Court. Later on, I was taken in as a disciple by a peak divine king expert of the Imperial Court. Yeah, that's my second master. This master of mine brought me to the 8 desolations and 6 harmonies. In the end, he died a few days after arriving here. However, who am I, Invincible Fighter, the brightest star in the darkness? My current master has appeared and taken me in as his last disciple. My current master is an Emperor God-level expert. Invincible Fighter said proudly. What a surprise. Wang Xian smiled in astonishment. Fortunately, his master from the Imperial Court had brought him here. Otherwise, things would be difficult. Boss Wang, why did you come to the 8 desolations and 6 harmonies? Could it be that this is fate? Invincible Fighter asked happily. Fate? Wang Xian smiled and nodded. He looked to the shocked 4th senior sister and said, Go and keep the wind jade. Oh, Invincible, we found this wind jade, so I asked them to keep it. He said plainly to Invincible Fighter. No problem. This treasure is naturally fated with you, Boss Wang. Invincible Fighter said without any objection. Yelu Ying and the rest widened their eyes. Even 4th senior sister was shocked. Chapter 2846. The second sacred feather in the windless forest. Everyone was shocked to see Wang Xian and Invincible. Yelu Ying and the rest were not the only ones who were shocked. Even those who came with Invincible were shocked. 20-odd 6th-level Immortal King God King Wind Jades were nothing to Invincible. But these Wind Jades were a gift for Invincible to please Heaven Heart. Under normal circumstances, Invincible would not give up these Wind Jades so easily. After all, Invincible was a narcissistic person. But now, Invincible agreed without hesitation. He addressed him as boss. Was this still the Invincible they knew? Invincible, you are giving up these wind jades to them? A few middle-aged men from Heavens will said unhappily when they saw Invincible giving up wind jade to Heaven's will. Although they were in awe of Invincible's strength and background, they were also jealous of him. Especially when Jean Fa Woody wanted to chase after their cousin, this made them feel a little unhappy. Come, let me introduce you. I, Invincible, will never bow down to anyone except Boss Wang. My boss is Invincible. Invincible ignored the few middle-aged men and spoke to the lady in the middle. Brother Wang, nice to meet you. Tianxin sized Wang Xian up with curiosity. She was well aware of Invincible. She was also curious about a person who could make Invincible address him as boss. Nice to meet you. Wang Xian looked at the girl and Invincible, who was standing at the side. He smiled and nodded his head. Heaven Heart, let me tell you. When Boss Wang and I teamed up, we were invincible. My God King War Pet was captured by Boss Wang. Invincible said to Heaven Heart in an exaggerated manner. So Brother Wang is a beast-taming grandmaster. Heaven Heart was taken aback as he exclaimed, You can say so. Wang Xian nodded plainly. Boss Wang is being humble. The number 1 beast tamer in the universe is definitely him. In the future, the universe will definitely be Boss Wang and I will be second. Invincible chuckled as he stared at Wang Xian with glowing eyes. Boss Wang, since we've met again, let's get back to business. I know where to find wild beasts. You just have to tame a rank 7 or 8 Undying God King battle pet for me. I don't have time right now. I still have some things to deal with. Let's talk about it when I have time. As he spoke, he patted Invincible Fighter on the shoulder. Alright. Invincible smiled and nodded. I still have some things to deal with. I'll come find you when I'm done. Wang Xian looked into the depths of the windless forest and realized that it was almost time. Do you have something to deal with? Boss Wang, can I be of any help? Invincible said. I can't. Wang Xian shook his head and looked at Yelu Ying and the rest. I have something to settle. Let's part ways here. Wang Xian, you, be careful, brother Wang Xian. Yelu Ying wanted to ask some questions, but the fifth senior brother interrupted her and cupped his fist at Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded and patted Invincible Fighter on the shoulder. See you in a few days. As soon as he finished his sentence, he flew towards the depths of the windless forest. Boss Wang, please leave your contact details. Invincible Fighter shouted from behind, but Wang Xian ignored him. Boss Wang is really a busy man. It's been 8 to 9 years since we last met. Invincible Battle Law sighed as he spoke. Invincible, is this Boss Wang really that powerful? Tianxin asked curiously from the side. Of course. He's my boss, Invincible Fighter. Invincible Fighter nodded his head heavily. Hey, how do you guys know Boss Wang? He looked at Yelu Ying and the rest and asked curiously. Yelu Ying and the rest were taken aback for a moment before revealing some things. In that case, that young man isn't that strong? A middle-aged man behind Tianxin raised an eyebrow when he heard Yelu Ying and the rest. Brother Wang is very mysterious. The fifth senior brother said as he looked at the middle-aged man. Their master had said that he was a 6th-level immortal king, but they had never seen it. However, they knew that Wang Xian wasn't as simple as he seemed from how he led them to so many wind jades. The middle-aged men twitched their lips in disdain when they heard the fifth senior brother. Let's split the wind jades in half. The fourth senior sister walked over and said to Invincible Fighter, Tianxin and the rest. No need. I've already told Boss Wang that it's all for you. However, her words were rejected by Invincible Fighter immediately. Tianxin, let's go. I'll bring you to look for more wind jades. Wang Xian had not seen Invincible Fighter for 8 to 9 years. He had wanted to have a good reunion with him, but they had bumped into each other here. Windless Forest only came once in 10,000 years. Wang Xian couldn't miss this opportunity. After separating from Invincible Fighter, Yelu Ying and the rest, Wang Xian flew towards the Windless Forest Valley. He was fast and soon arrived at the front of the Windless Forest Valley. Looking ahead, the hurricane had already entered the Windless Forest Valley. It wouldn't be long before the attack power of the trees in the Windless Forest Valley would be greatly reduced. Let's go in and investigate. As Wang Xian spoke, he moved and entered the Windless Forest Valley. As the trees in the Windless Forest Valley had not reduced their attack power, the group of God Emperors had not arrived and were waiting. Wang Xian was the first to enter the Windless Forest Valley. Relying on the unbeginning Saint Wings, he wouldn't be attacked as long as he didn't touch the trees. After passing through the valley, Wang Xian soon arrived at the place where he was previously. His yin-yang 5 elements dragon eyes scanned the surroundings. He moved and flew towards the depths of the Windless Forest Valley. At the entrance, all the wind jades had been collected by him, except for one sacred feather. After obtaining that sacred feather, Wang Xian could clearly sense that there was still a sacred feather inside. This feeling was unusually strong. He flew towards the interior quickly. The entire Windless Forest Valley wasn't huge, but it would take Wang Xian a few hours to travel across. After flying for a short while, Wang Xian saw wind jades on the surrounding trees. Among them were wind jades in the form of birds. Tikiske, as long as the trees here fall under the attack, these treasures will be mine. Wang Xian scanned the wind jades with a burning passion. He didn't stay any longer and flew forward immediately. He could sense that there was a holy feather in front of him. The second one. Soon, Wang Xian revealed a faint smile. He stared at the sacred feather at the root of a tree and smiled. Chapter 2847. Get all of them on top, the second feather. According to the information from the unbeginning sacred wings, there are a total of 49 feathers. Wang Xian murmured, 47 more to go. His body moved and he continued to fly forward. The third, the fourth, the fifth. Wang Xian's eyes lit up as he ventured deeper. Other than the feathers, there was a large amount of wind jade. Wang Xian had found more than 20 bird-shaped wind jades. These bird-shaped wind jades were comparable to First-Order God Emperor realm treasures. To wind-attributed cultivators, it was a huge treasure. The wind divine dragons can absorb these wind jades directly. Wang Xian murmured, his eyes shining. All these wind jades could help the 9 wind divine dragons break through to the God Emperor realm. The wind divine dragons were the 9 flood dragons. These 9 flood dragons had been cultivating in seclusion in the Dragon Palace and had not participated in the Dragon Palace's battles for a long time. In the past, the 9 flood dragons were used to pull the dragon throne. Now, they were rarely used. The main reason was that they had evolved from flood dragons to true divine dragons, wind divine dragons. In this resplendent starry sky, there was detailed information about the divine dragon tribe. Once the wind divine dragon appeared, it would be recognized. What would happen if a weak divine dragon appeared in the resplendent starry sky? They would be captured by God Emperor experts, and some God Emperor experts might even want to obtain the divine dragon bloodline. Therefore, Wang Xian had not allowed the 9 wind divine dragons to participate in the Dragon Palace's battles. But if all 9 wind divine dragons had the battle strength of a First-Order God Emperor, or even a Second-Order God Emperor, then there was nothing to worry about. At that time, the 9 wind divine dragons could appear directly. If I can get my hands on a few dozen wind jades, the wind divine dragons can definitely increase their battle strength to the God Emperor realm. Wang Xian smiled and continued to fly forward. He found sacred feather after sacred feather. In just half an hour, Wang Xian had already found 23. I can't continue searching. At this moment, Wang Xian paused for a moment and looked behind him. He squinted his eyes and felt a terrifying aura. Some God Emperor had arrived. Moreover, the attack power of the trees at the entrance had decreased. His body moved and he quickly returned to where he came from. Wang Xian's greatest advantage here was that the surrounding trees would not attack him. As for the others, even God Emperor experts would be attacked by the trees. Even if there was no wind, the attack power of the trees would be greatly reduced, but the countless trees could still cause great trouble for them. Otherwise, the wind jades here would have long been obtained by experts. Boom boom boom. So. These trees are really annoying. Even when there's no wind, they still have the offensive power of an undying God King. When Wang Xian flew out, the sounds of battle and cold snorts could be heard. Wang Xian squinted his eyes. The attacks of the trees at the entrance had already been reduced to the undying God King stage, but even a God Emperor would have to take them seriously. After all, this was equivalent to several thousand Ninth Order Immortal King Realm experts attacking at the same time. Wang Xian sped up and arrived at the front. It's time to harvest. His eyes were filled with excitement as he flew directly towards a tree. There was a wind jade on it. With a wave of his hand, he took the wind jade away. So. In the next instant, the tree launched an attack, and countless leaves flew towards Wang Xian. However, Wang Xian only touched this tree, and the other trees did not attack him. This was equivalent to a Ninth Order God King Realm expert attacking Wang Xian. It's just an itch. He moved and flew forward, his eyes locked onto the wind jades on the trees, and he quickly took them away. The second sacred feather. Very quickly, Wang Xian arrived at the location of the second sacred feather, and with a wave of his hand he easily took it away. The tree's attack came instantly, and a terrifying aura swept over. Wang Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. This attack had reached the First Order God Emperor realm. However, it was considered weak among the First Order God Emperors. Boom! Wang Xian took the attack head-on, and his body flew back a few thousand meters. He stabilized himself, and continued flying forward with a calm expression. Wind Jades, Peak Immortal King Realm, and First Order God Emperor Realm experts were easily taken away by him. and the sacred feather after sacred feather was quickly collected by him. Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement. This time, his harvest was huge. With so many treasures, the Dragon Palace would be able to improve significantly. At least 9 wind divine dragons could increase their battle prowess to the First Order God Emperor realm, or even more. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he harvested the sacred feather like crazy. What's going on? Why can't I see any wind jades in the windless forest valley? At the same time, at the entrance of the windless forest valley, experts exuding a terrifying aura scanned their surroundings with bitter expressions. There were more than a dozen majestic figures, and their bodies were shrouded in a brilliant light. Branches and leaves fell around them, but they were blocked by a powerful defense. The dozen figures frowned slightly, and their expressions were slightly ugly as they scanned their surroundings. Within the windless forest valley, during other times, First Order God Emperor Realm experts and even Second Order God Emperor Realm experts would not dare to enter. Only on windless days would they step into this place. To these God Emperors, windless days were the best time for them to obtain powerful wind jades. If they were lucky, they would be able to obtain a fortune even for a God Emperor. But now, they did not see any wind jades. This made them extremely puzzled. Logically speaking, since no one had entered the windless forest valley for 10,000 years, there would definitely be a lot of wind jades. The attack power of the trees here has just decreased, and we are the first batch of people to enter. Could it be that an expert came here before the windless day? Some of the experts revealed an expression of shock, and their expressions turned slightly ugly. A windless day was a day for them to harvest. Now that there was no wind jades, they were unhappy. Let's continue to take a look. The eyes of the God Emperors flickered, and they continued deeper into the windless forest valley. However, the closer they got to the inner part of the windless forest valley, the denser the trees, and the stronger the attack power. As a result, their speed became slower and slower. However, after advancing for more than 10 minutes, they still did not see any wind jades. This caused their expressions to turn uglier. What exactly was going on this windless day? What happened in the windless forest? The group of God Emperors was slightly unwilling, but they could only brace themselves and continue forward. Every windless day, even though they could not reach the deepest part of the windless forest valley, they could still advance several billion kilometers. What the God Emperors did not know was that several billion kilometers in front of them, there was a person harvesting wind jades and holy feathers in a frenzy. Chapter 2848. The attacking power of the trees is getting stronger. Within the windless forest valley, Wang Xian's expression turned serious after obtaining a sacred feather. He had already entered the depths of the windless forest valley. After flying for 2 days, he could already see the end of the windless forest valley. At the end of the valley, there was a towering mountain with densely packed trees. However, when Wang Xian obtained the 26th sacred feather, the attacking power of the trees had already made it difficult for Wang Xian to deal with them. 26, including the one I have already obtained, a total of 27. I'm still short of 22. But this windless forest valley seems to be reaching the end. I can still find sacred feather inside, but there should be less than 22. Could it be that there are still sacred feather missing? Wang Xian's expression was a little ugly. The windless forest valley was reaching its end, and he was still short of 22 sacred feather. If there were not enough sacred feather here, it would be troublesome. Where could he find a single feather in the vast sea of stars? Let's continue deeper. Wang Xian frowned as he continued flying forward. After flying for a few minutes, Wang Xian did not find a single wind jade or sacred feather. This made his expression even uglier. He was about to reach the end. Almost there. In less than a minute, the end of the mountain was right in front of him. On the unbeginning Saint Wings, Wang Xian could sense the presence of sacred feather. However, even with one sacred feather, he was still short of 21. Suddenly, when Wang Xian swept his gaze across the surroundings, he froze completely. He looked in front of him with astonishment and shock written all over his face. At the end of the windless forest valley, there was an incomparably huge tree. This tree was 10 times the size of the surrounding trees. The branches were abnormally long and densely packed with leaves. However, in the middle of this tree, there was a wind jade. This wind jade was bird-shaped, but it was several times the size of a First-Order God Emperor Realm wind jade, about half a meter long. However, this was not what shocked Wang Xian. What shocked him was the sacred feather on the wings of this bird. Not just one sacred feather, but a total of 22. In other words, all the sacred feather of the unbeginning saint wings were here. Unexpected, really unexpected, all the sacred feather are here. Wang Xian's eyes were burning with excitement. He originally thought that there would be a shortage of sacred feather, but he did not expect the remaining sacred feather to all be here. It was a pleasant surprise. But soon, his expression turned solemn. The last tree in the windless forest valley was the largest tree. It was 10 times the size of the other trees. This also meant that the tree's attack was exceptionally terrifying. Wang Xian stared at the tree and his expression kept changing. I have to obtain sacred feather. Even if my body collapses or dies, I have to obtain it. The moment I obtain sacred feather, I'll put sacred feather and that wind jade into the dragon palace. Wang Xian gritted his teeth with determination in his eyes. He was determined to obtain sacred feather. If he could not obtain these sacred feathers during the windless days, he might have to raise his combat power to the 3rd or 4th stage Void God Emperor realm before he could obtain these sacred feathers. Let's give it a shot. Wang Xian scanned his surroundings. In the next moment, his body gradually transformed. A 2-meter-long rainbow divine dragon appeared. Strangely, the rainbow divine dragon had a pair of bone wings on its back. Wang Xian, who had transformed into a divine dragon, squinted his eyes. An earthy yellow energy surrounded his body. He took a deep breath. I'll be lucky if I don't die. Wang Xian gripped his dragon claws tightly as he approached. Chirp, chirp, chirp. The moment Wang Xian gripped the avian wind jade with his dragon claws, the entire avian wind jade's pupils emitted a green radiance. A sharp sound came from its mouth. The avian wind jade seemed to be alive. A terrifying aura came from the avian wind jade. At this moment, Wang Xian's face turned pale. Its cold eyes stared at Wang Xian and its wings trembled slightly. It's psychic. Wang Xian's face was filled with cold sweat. His eyes revealed a tinge of fear. How strong would the fusion of a 2nd stage Void God Emperor Wind Jade and 22 Sacred Feather be? Killing Wang Xian would be a piece of cake. Voila! The avian wind jade's wings trembled slightly as though something terrifying was about to befall. Just as Wang Xian was prepared to escape, the unbeginning saint wings on his back suddenly trembled. A surge of energy enveloped the avian wind jade. The sacred feather on it trembled slightly. Chirp chirp. A mournful cry came from the avian wind jade. A glimmer of hope flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. He grabbed the avian wind jade with his dragon claws and peeled it off the tree. In the next moment, he kept the avian wind jade. Got it. An excited look appeared on his face. Got it all. All 49 sacred feather were in his hands, along with a large amount of wind jade. Wang Xian couldn't help but burst into laughter. Swish, swish, swish. However, it might be that extreme joy begets sorrow. When he touched the avian wind jade, the huge tree had yet to attack him. When he put away the bird wind jade, the trees moved. It was 10 times bigger than the other trees. There were millions of leaves on it. Moreover, the branches were emitting a green radiance. They looked like horrifying wind whips. The wind whips and millions of leaves attacked Wang Xian instantly. Shit. Wang Xian felt the horrifying attack and his expression changed. Layers of thick and heavy earth elemental laws of defense appeared in front of him. Bam bam bam. However, the earth elemental laws of defense didn't even last for 0.001 seconds before it collapsed. A series of attacks landed on Wang Xian. Damn! Wang Xian was horrified. He felt that he would be destroyed by the leaves and branches in the next moment. There was no way he could survive. With a sudden thought, he covered his vital parts with the unbeginning sacred wings. Head and heart. When the unbeginning sacred wings covered his head and heart, He realized that the other parts of his body had disappeared. Yes, they had all disappeared. They were obliterated by the horrifying attack. However, Wang Xian's eyes were filled with excitement at this moment. The unbeginning sacred wings could withstand the attacks of the leaves and branches. Only his head and heart were left. That was enough. Even if he could recover, it wouldn't take long. His eyes lit up and he fled outside rapidly. With a slight movement of his head, he transformed into his human form. The dissipated body was restored by his dragon energy. Swish, swish, swish. However, Wang Xian didn't expect the tree behind him to launch a second round of attacks. With the unbeginning sacred wings, he wouldn't be attacked again as long as he dodged the first round of attacks. However, he didn't expect the tree to launch a second round of attacks. This time, the attack was a little familiar. The branches and leaves formed into the shape of a fan and attacked him directly. Chapter 2849. Is this a robbery? Rumble, rumble, rumble. The humongous fan carried the horrifying power of the law of wind. When the fan was fanned towards him, a mighty typhoon formed in front of the fan. The horrifying attack shocked Wang Xian. He protected his vital parts with the unbeginning sacred wings. Boom! Waves of horrifying wind energy rushed towards him. His arms and legs were easily blown away like dandelions by the wind energy attack, disappearing without a trace. Only the parts protected by the unbeginning sacred wings were not destroyed. The horrifying power of the typhoon sent his body flying into the distance again. This time, the flying was even more ferocious, even more tragic. Wang Xian felt himself whistling in the air. The speed at which he was being fanned was twice as fast as when he was flying at full speed. He bumped into other trees along the way and they didn't even have time to react. What kind of concept was this? His head began to crack. Wang Xian mobilized his energy to protect his head and heart. Wang Xian's face was unusually pale as he recovered and cracked again and again. Damn it. It's been 2 days. I haven't seen a single wind jade in 2 days. What's going on in the windless forest? At the same time, in the depths of the windless forest, an old man shrouded in the law of wind scanned his surroundings with a bitter look. It had been more than 2 days. He had been in the windless forest for more than 2 days and he hadn't seen a single wind jade. There was only one treasure in the windless forest, wind jade. However, he hadn't gotten a single one. Some of the emperor gods who had entered had already returned. He was indignant. He continued to venture deeper after consuming a huge amount of energy. However, the outcome was the same as the entrance. There wasn't even a feather on the wind jade. This made him slightly annoyed in his heart. The windless forest only lasted for 3 days. Time is almost up. Damn it. He couldn't help but curse and was ready to return. Boom. However, at this moment, something seemed to fly out from the depths. He was taken aback and quickly looked over. Is that a human? What a horrifying speed. No, he's been attacked and he's severely injured. He lifted his head and could only see a blurry figure. Seeing the figure disappear, he looked towards the depths of the windless forest. How did he come out from the depths of windless forest valley? What's going on? All the wind jades have disappeared. Is it related to this figure? His expression changed slightly as he looked in the direction where the person had disappeared. Gritting his teeth, he moved and chased in that direction. However, with the interference of the trees, his speed was very slow. Bam, bam, bam. Under the attack of the tree at the end of the windless forest valley, Wang Xian once again experienced the feeling of being thrown backward. This time, it was even more terrifying than the last. The powerful impact caused his body to quickly crumble, and the attack sent him flying hundreds of millions of miles away. Along the way, his body crashed into the huge mountain peak and directly smashed through it. One could imagine how terrifying that attack was. Boom. Somewhere in the windless forest, Wang Xian's body landed heavily on the ground, forming a humongous pit. Cough, cough. Wang Xian, who was lying in the huge pit, coughed out blood and looked extremely pale. This time, the injury was more than 10 times worse than the last time. However, as long as he kept his life, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to recover. Looking around, he revealed a speechless expression. This attack had sent him flying across half of the windless forest. Unlike the previous time, he didn't encounter any beauties this time. Wang. At this time, Wang Xian sensed the communication stone plate in the nest vibrating. He took it out and revealed a smile. Sky Array, Orochi and the rest were rushing over. Let's recuperate here. Wang Xian hesitated and thought to himself. After recuperating, he would look for Jean Fa Woody to catch up before returning to the Dragon Palace. With a swift move, he flew to a spot not far from the huge pit and sat cross-legged to recuperate. This time, his injuries were indeed severe. His body had been destroyed hundreds of times. If it wasn't for his divine dragon body and strong dragon energy, he might have died. However, it was all worth it. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Wang Xian absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy to rapidly recuperate from his injuries. The loud sound came from this direction. Let's go and take a look. Could it be that some treasure has been unearthed? Treasure? How dare you think? Other than wind jades, what other treasures are there in the windless forest? We're really unlucky this time. We didn't get many wind jades. Damn it. However, not long after Wang Xian sat cross-legged to recuperate, voices were heard. On the right, more than 20 figures were flying over. As they flew, they chatted with each other. They didn't look too good. Other than encountering more than 20 wind jades in the beginning, they didn't have such good luck ever again. They didn't even get any wind jades, which infuriated them. After 2 consecutive days without any harvest, they were even more irritable. When they heard the loud sound, they rushed over immediately. There's a huge pit over there. There's no treasure in it. More than 20 people flew over and frowned as they scanned the area. Look, Brother Long. There's someone there. At this time, a middle-aged man pointed to Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Everyone looked over and saw a pale-faced young man covered in blood sitting there cross-legged. The young man looked extremely weak. It's him, Brother Long. He's one of the people we met at the beginning. Suddenly, a young man stared at Wang Xian and exclaimed, "Seems like it." Brother Long, who was the leader, raised his eyebrows as he sized Wang Xian up. He had some impression of the young man in front of him. When they met more than 20 wind jades, there were already 5 of them there. This young man was one of them. At this time, Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged, also sensed the arrival of people. He opened his eyes slightly and looked around. He recognized the group of disciples from 8 Desolates. He took out an elixir pill and placed it in his mouth. Then he closed his eyes and ignored them. This guy seems to be seriously injured. Seeing Wang Xian open his eyes and close them again, one of the middle-aged men commented, "Brother Long, did you notice that the elixir pill he took just now seemed to be of a very high level?" Suddenly, a skinny middle-aged man on the left had a passionate look in his eyes. What? Brother Long and the rest looked at the skinny middle-aged man with doubts. The skinny middle-aged man didn't say a word. He stared at the figure in front of him and couldn't help but lick his lips. In the next moment, he moved and took out an imprisonment ring and locked it on Wang Xian. Chapter 2850. Trouble arises, that brat, Tan Lang. Seeing the skinny middle-aged man charging towards the young man, the disciples from 8 Desolation frowned and shook their heads. However, they did not stop him. Tan Lang was the name of the middle-aged man. As for whether that was his real name, they had no idea. Tan Lang was an alchemist guru and knew a lot about elixir pills. At the same time, they knew that Tan Lang was famous for his greed. Once he encountered a treasure, he would not give it up as long as there was a chance to get it. Seeing Tan Lang taking out the confinement circle and charging towards the young man, coupled with what Tan Lang had said just now, they knew that the elixir pill that the young man had consumed was not simple. Tan Lang wanted to strike. The disciples from 8 Desolation looked on emotionlessly with smiles on their faces. At this moment, Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes slowly. He saw an confinement circle coming towards him. He looked at the middle-aged man in front of him, who was filled with greed. There was no fluctuation in his eyes. The confinement circle arrived above his head and locked him in place. Seeing the confinement circle locking him in place, the skinny middle-aged man was filled with excitement and greed. Bam! Wang Xian's eyes were cold as the confinement circle above his head collapsed. Rumble! In the next moment, Tan Lang's eyes widened and were filled with horror. His face was filled with horror as he stared at his own body. He discovered that his body was actually slowly splitting apart. His body was rapidly dissipating. Great horror befell him as the threat of death made him tremble violently. His eyes were filled with horror and despair as he stared at Wang Xian in front of him. What? The disciples from 8 Desolation, who were watching the show from behind, were shocked when they saw Tan Lang's body collapsing and dissipating rapidly. Oh no, that young man is very strong. Brother Long, who was the leader, was shocked as he shouted. He moved and wanted to protect Tan Lang. No. However, at this moment, Tan Lang's body had completely collapsed and was disappearing bit by bit. He could never imagine why this young man was so terrifyingly strong. Back then, when they had tried to snatch the wind jade from the other party's hands, the other party did not even dare to resist. Why did he suddenly erupt with such terrifying strength now? How strong was he to be able to render a 6th-order immortal god king realm expert powerless? Seeing Ravenous Wolf's body turning into ashes, Wang Xian snorted coldly. He turned to Brother Long, who had tried to save Ravenous Wolf. Boom! In the next moment, a terrifying flame appeared around Brother Long. Not good, hurry up and get reinforcements. The flames engulfed Brother Long. He was horrified as he stared at Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged, and shouted immediately. Boom! However, at that moment, the flames grew stronger and enveloped his body, causing him to dissipate before he could even scream. From Tan Lang's death to Brother Long's death, it all happened in the blink of an eye. However, the young man who was sitting there did not move at all. He stared coldly at them. What kind of strength was this? 8th Order Undying God King? Could an 8th Order Undying God King do it? Boom boom boom. At this moment, all of them trembled, and their eyes were filled with shock. They had offended someone they could not afford to offend. A middle-aged man quickly took out an item and sent it into the sky. In the sky above the windless forest, the 8 Desolation disciples' distress signal could be heard. Wang Xian lifted his head and frowned slightly. What a bummer! He stood up slowly as waves of aura emanated from his body. This was the second time he had met this group of people. Previously, when Wang Xian was about to make a move, Invincible Zhan happened to arrive, and they managed to escape. But now, they dared to provoke him by using the confinement circle. What were they trying to do? Or kill him? Wang Xian stared at them and could not help but feel amused. They were lucky to be able to rob the Celestial Emperor. What a terrifying aura! Waves of aura emanated from Wang Xian's body. Their faces changed drastically as cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. It has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with us. Several middle-aged men hurriedly shouted. A few young men at the side trembled slightly as their figures turned illusory. They wanted to escape back to their own holy kingdom. Boom! But in the next moment, a terrifying aura rippled and their illusory figures gradually solidified. This is impossible. The few of them roared in disbelief as their bodies trembled. What kind of existence was this young man? A bunch of fools who are courting death. Wang Xian said plainly. The surrounding energy vibrated slightly. A wave of energy that made them despair rushed towards him. The remaining 20-odd people shouted in horror. Bam bam bam. In the next moment, the corpses fell to the ground. Swish swish swish. As the corpses fell, they lost their defense and triggered the wind. The surrounding trees launched their attacks. Branches and leaves fell on them, penetrating their bodies. It was a gruesome scene. The evils brought upon themselves were the hardest to bear. Over there. That's the location of the 8 Desolation disciples' distress signal. They must have encountered some danger. The disciples who came this time are all divine kings. Could they be fighting for the Wind Jade? At the same time, not far away, more than a dozen figures were flying towards them at high speed. In other places, the distress signal from the Octaterra Desolation disciples also attracted many Octaterra experts and disciples to rush over. When the disciples of the other factions saw the distress signal, their faces were filled with curiosity. Some of the disciples who were closer also rushed over. There was a high possibility that the signal flare was sent to fight for the Wind Jade. They were all here for the Wind Jade. Naturally, they wanted to take a look and see if they could get anything out of it. Someone's here so soon. At this moment, Wang Xian walked towards the group of corpses. Before he reached the group of corpses, he sensed that someone was flying towards him. There were a dozen figures and they were stronger than the people he killed. The leader was a 9th-level Immortal King Realm old man. Where are the 8 Desolation disciples? A dozen people flew over. One of the old men scanned the surroundings and shouted in confusion. Look down. One of them shouted immediately. The dozen people looked down. When they saw the 20-odd corpses, their faces were filled with murderous intent. Their eyes quickly fell on Wang Xian, who was in front of the corpses. Surround him. One of the old men roared and emitted a strong murderous aura. Chapter 2851. The 8 Desolations must kill him. One rumble rumble rumble. Within the windless forest, a dozen experts from the 8 Desolations surrounded Wang Xian. The elder who was floating in the air was an elder of the 8 Desolations, a 9th-order Immortal God King Realm expert. The strength of the 8 Desolations used to be in the top 3 in the entire bedazzling starry sky. Now it was ranked 4th. The strength of the 8 Desolations was much stronger than the Imperial Court and the Witch Union. Elder Lai, over 20 disciples have been killed. They are all dead. A middle-aged man landed beside the corpses of the disciples and said with a bitter expression, "It was difficult to kill a divine King Realm expert and they could escape in the face of danger. But they had all died here." This caused them to be extremely astonished. The 8 Desolations elders stared at Wang Xian with a gloomy face, then at the surrounding corpses and the huge pit at the side. "Elder, our disciples might have gotten into a fight with them. However, this space should have been sealed off by a treasure or a formation," the elder said. "They only broke the array before they died." An old man glanced around and guessed. At the same time, he held a confinement circle in his hand. If the young man tried to escape, he would be trapped by the confinement circle. "You are the one who killed our disciples." The elder Lai stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent. The corpses below, the injuries on Wang Xian and the huge pit at the side made them think that there had been a battle and their disciples were killed. Wang Xian looked at the elder of the 8 Desolations and revealed a faint smile. "You are just courting death," he said in disdain. Boom. As soon as he finished his sentence, a terrifying murderous aura came. "Ah, good. How dare you kill our disciples? I want to see who is the one courting death." The elder Lai roared with murderous intent. "What happened? Is it the Wind Jade?" "It should be. Otherwise, why would the people from the 8 Desolations use the signal flare to ask for help?" At this time, voices came from not far away and figures flew over quickly. Such an eye-catching distress signal could be clearly seen by everyone within a radius of more than 1 billion kilometers. There was only one reason to use a signal flare in the windless forest, and that was to fight for the Wind Jade. Everyone who entered the windless forest came for Fengyu. Seeing this signal flare, some experts naturally came over to take a look. "Let's see if we can get a share." 7 or 8 people flew over and looked over, their eyes gleaming. Someone died. The disciples of 8 Desolations have been killed. The group of people swept their gazes forward and their pupils constricted as they whispered. "This is Ba Huang's business. Everyone get lost." Elder Lai shouted coldly when he saw someone flying in their direction. The death of a disciple of Ba Huang was a major event. When the 7 or 8 people heard the cold shout of the 8 Desolation elder, they did not dare to anger him. They retreated a bit and looked on in surprise. Buzz. When Elder Lai saw them retreating, he waved his arm and a confinement circle appeared in his hand. "Brat, I want to know what kind of background you have that allowed you to kill a disciple of Ba Huang." He stared coldly at Wang Xian and asked. For killing a disciple of Ba Huang, not only did they want to eliminate this young man, but they also wanted the forces behind him to pay a heavy price. How could it be so easy to kill a disciple of a top force in the bedazzling star galaxy? As long as he dared to kill them, not only would the killer have to pay with his life, but the forces behind him would also pay the price. The reason why he did not attack Wang Xian immediately was because he wanted to know the forces behind him. Oh, he. Wang Xian raised his eyebrows and revealed a cold smirk in his eyes. You're courting death. Even if you don't say it, Ba Huang can dig it out. Elder Lai growled in a deep voice and locked the confinement circle in his hand towards Wang Xian. Swish, swish, swish. Elder Lai, what's going on? The confinement circle attacked Wang Xian. Wang Xian stood there without moving, quietly watching the confinement circle lock him in place. At this time, more people flew over, but they were experts from Ba Huang. Elder Zhou, someone killed our disciple? Elder Lai swept his gaze over and said. A group of more than 10 people was led by an elder from Ba Huang. The windless forest was a treasure land. During the windless days, Ba Huang would naturally send people over. In fact, they would send quite a number of people. They were only a part of the group. What? Someone dared to kill our disciples? The burly old man who flew overheard Elder Lai's words. His face was filled with killing intent as he scanned the surroundings. His gaze finally landed on Wang Xian. He killed our disciples. Killing him would be letting him off too easily. Capture him and let him experience the pain of being suppressed by Ba Huang. Elder Zhou roared with a face full of rage. That's right. Let them know the consequences of killing our disciples. The surrounding experts from the 8 desolations shouted coldly. That young man is in trouble. I wonder why he killed our disciples. But that young man doesn't look like an expert. There are 7th Order Immortal God King Realm experts among the dead. Look at his injuries. He must have fought with the disciples from Ba Huang for a long time. He might have a trump card. The 7 or 8 people who had arrived first looked ahead and discussed among themselves. Little junior sister, why are we here? We're just here to take a look. It's hard for us to get the wind jade anyway. Let's see what's going on here. Just as the 7 to 8 people were discussing, a voice came from behind. The 7 to 8 people who arrived first swept a glance over and ignored it. That's Wang Xian. It's him. What's going on? The group that arrived was Yelu Ying and her group. They had been searching for the wind jade for the past 2 days. It was a pity that after Wang Xian left, and with more and more people entering, they didn't have much to gain. Yelu Ying, who loved to join in the fun, wanted to come over. But she didn't expect the figure in front to be Wang Xian. 4th senior sister, who was the strongest among them, recognized him immediately. She looked around and her expression changed slightly. Let's go over. The 4th senior sister hesitated for a moment, and her expression changed. Seeing that the 4 of them recognized the young man who was the enemy of Ba Huang, the 7 to 8 people who were watching from the side looked over in surprise. In front of them, the 2 Ba Huang elders squinted their eyes when they heard the commotion. Since he dared to kill the disciples of Ba Huang, the young man in front of them would not only pay the price, but also the forces he was in. Now, his companions were here. The cultivators from Ba Huang all had cold looks in their eyes. Chapter 2852. 8 Desolation Must Kill Him. 2-inch Wang Xian. 4th senior sister stared at Wang Xian, who was surrounded in the center, and shouted. At the same time, she took out a communication stone plate, pressed it, and put it away. She gritted her teeth and led the group of senior and junior sisters inside. She could understand the situation in front of her with a glance. However, her master had instructed her to ensure Wang Xian's safety. Now that she had met him, she couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Even if the other party's strength wasn't something she could handle. When Wang Xian heard the voices behind him, he also sensed Yelu Ying and the other 3. However, he didn't expect them to be involved. Given the current situation, they would be the ones trapped if they were here. Of course, this was Wang Xian's point of view. To Wang Xian, the current situation could be resolved with a snap of his fingers. Wang Xian, are you all right? Why are there so many injuries on your body? Yellow Ying and the rest flew over and asked with concern when they saw the bloodstains on Wang Xian and his pale complexion. I'm fine. Wang Xian shook his head plainly. Hee, I didn't expect you to have companions. Great, let's kill them all. The 8 Desolation disciples who surrounded Wang Xian didn't stop Yellow Ying and the rest from flying over. Instead, they looked on coldly. Since their companions were here, they would just have to pay the price together. Wang Xian, what happened? Fourth senior sister asked Wang Xian with a change of expression when she heard the experts from 8 Desolation. It's nothing. The disciples from 8 Desolation saw that I was injured and wanted to snatch some things. So I killed them. Wang Xian smiled at them and answered casually. However, his words made fourth senior sister, Yellow Ying, and the rest pale. Killing disciples from 8 Desolation without a second thought? This was beyond imagination. Wang Xian, hold on for a while. Our master will be here soon. Fourth senior sister gritted her teeth and whispered to Wang Xian. Wang. As soon as fourth senior sister finished her sentence, confinement circles flew towards them. Given their strength, they couldn't escape from the 8 Desolation elders. Confinement circles floated above their heads. This made their hearts sink. Capture them all. Since they dared to kill our disciples, we'll make them pay 100 times the price. Elder Zhou said coldly. Wait a minute. It was you guys from 8 Desolations who coveted Wang Xian's treasures first. That's why we struck. Fourth senior sister's expression changed, and she immediately shouted. No matter what the reason is, since you dared to kill our disciples, you must pay the price. Elder Lai said with a cold expression. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding disciples were ready to take action. We are disciples of the sanctuary. The fourth senior sister's face turned pale when she sensed the pressure around her. Hearing her words, Elder Lai and Elder Zhou's gazes froze slightly. Hee, sacred region. Do you think that just because a disciple of the sacred region killed a disciple of our 8 Desolation, he can escape this calamity? Or could it be that we, the 8 Desolation, are afraid of the sacred region? Elder Zhou's face was cold as he glared at them. No, we just want to figure out who's right and who's wrong. Fourth senior sister immediately shook her head. The sanctuary was weaker than the 8 Desolations. She revealed her identity not to threaten the elders of the 8 Desolations, but to buy time. She had to wait for her master to come and deal with this matter. The only thing she could do was to buy time. No matter what, the name of the sacred region was still useful, and the elders of the 8 Desolations would not be as unscrupulous as before. They're disciples of the sacred region? A disciple of the sacred region killed a disciple of the 8 Desolations? This is not a small matter. If we're not careful, it could cause a conflict between the two forces. I didn't expect them to be disciples of the sacred region. Now they're fighting each other. The surrounding people were slightly shocked when they heard what they said, and their faces were filled with shock. Since it involved the sacred region, this matter was not as simple as it seemed. Just as they were talking, some people rushed over. When they saw the people in front of them, they whispered to each other. No matter how strong you are, you must die for killing a disciple of the 8 Desolations. Even the sacred region is useless. Elder Zhou roared with a face full of killing intent. Our master will be here soon, and he will give you an explanation. The fourth senior sister's expression changed slightly, and she shouted again. Master? The experts of the 8 Desolations squinted their eyes. Kill that brat first, and capture the other 4. I'm curious to see how the sacred region will give us an explanation later. However, what the 4 senior sister and the rest did not expect was that the 8 Desolations elder did not give them any time and gave the order directly. Shit. Wang Xian, be careful. The 4th senior sister and the rest were shocked as they quickly warned Wang Xian. The name of the sacred region was useless to the other party. Damn, let's see who dares to touch Boss Wang. But all of a sudden, a rather arrogant voice came from outside. A silhouette flew over to them. Boss Wang. The newcomer, Invincible combat. He was also attracted by the distress signal from the 8 Desolations. The windless forest was not huge. Invincible combat loved this kind of commotion the most. Naturally, he was very interested in this matter and rushed over immediately. However, when he arrived, Invincible Combat panicked when he saw Wang Xian. How dare someone from the 8 Desolations want to kill Boss Wang? Brother Invincible, don't get involved in this. At the back, several young men hurriedly spoke to Invincible Combat. Their expressions changed as they had a bad feeling about this. Tianxin's expression also changed as he looked at Invincible Combat. He wanted to reach out and stop him. This concerned the 8 Desolations, and it was not something they could get involved in, even if they had a strong background. What's this Invincible Combat for? Is he looking for trouble? If he really gets into trouble, even his master might not be able to settle it. Several middle-aged men behind Tianxin said with a sullen expression. Boss Wang. Invincible Combat ignored the shouts behind him as he flew to Wang Xian's side and shouted again. Oh, what a coincidence! Wang Xian asked with a smile when he saw Invincible Combat. He was nonchalant as though the situation before him had nothing to do with him. Hee, Boss Wang, this is fate for us. Don't worry, Boss Wang. No one can bully you in the territory of my Invincible Combat. Invincible Combat smiled at Wang Xian as he spoke. Following which, he turned around and looked at the people from the 8 Desolations. He lifted his head slightly and said, Why? My boss Invincible Combat isn't someone you can bully. Invincible Combat. The elders from the 8 Desolations frowned when they saw Invincible Combat suddenly intervening. Chapter 2853. Invincible Zhan was the last disciple of the Upper Water God Emperor. At the same time, the Upper Water God Emperor was also a veteran God Emperor in 8 Wilderness. The Upper Water God Emperor wasn't an Emperor God of 8 Wilderness, but he was related to the 8 Wilderness God Emperors. But he was still the last disciple of an Emperor God. They frowned and stared at Wang Xian coldly. They didn't expect a young man to attract the last disciple of the Sacred Region and Upper Water God Emperor. Young Master Invincible Zhan, no one can kill a disciple of our 8 Wilderness and leave safely. If we let him go, where will our dignity be? Young Master Invincible Zhan, please don't make things difficult for us. If we have no choice, we will have to offend you. Elder Lai frowned and reminded Invincible Zhan plainly. Currently, there were already hundreds of people gathered around. They were experts from the 8 Desolation 6 directions and the other regions. At this time, if they were to let go of someone who killed their disciple, they would really lose all their face. By then, others would say that they were cowards. After all, Invincible Zhan only had an Emperor God backing him. The strength of the Sacred Region was weaker than them. Offend? I want to say the same thing to you. If you don't let it go, I will have to offend you. Invincible Zhan looked cold. He waved his arm and water rings appeared in his hand. Each water ring contained a terrifying aura. This aura made everyone's heart palpitate. That's the divine weapon used by the Upper Water God Emperor in the past. It's the Heavy Water Ring, the famous divine weapon of the Upper Water God Emperor before he became an emperor. It's said that this divine weapon is extremely powerful and has its own intelligence. I didn't expect it to be in the hands of Invincible Zhan. Such a treasure can allow Invincible Zhan to fight beyond his level. He can even go against a pinnacle immortal king. When the Heavy Water Ring appeared, everyone was slightly startled. Their faces were filled with astonishment. The faces of the experts from 8 Desolate also changed. Their expressions were slightly unsightly. Invincible Zhan, are you trying to make an enemy out of 8 Wilderness? Have you considered the consequences? Elder Zhou stared at Zhan Ifiwudi with a murderous look on his face as he growled. The rest of the experts from 8 Wilderness were also looking coldly. I don't care who you are. If you dare to touch my boss, who is invincible in combat, you'll have to ask me first. Invincible Battle Law raised his head proudly. Brother Wudi, we'd better not get involved in this matter. At the side, a few young men who followed Invincible shouted anxiously. At this moment, their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. The other party was an elder of Ba Huang, and that young man had killed a disciple of Ba Huang. This was no small matter. Once Invincible battle law was involved and the 8 desolates were really angered, even the Water God Emperor might not be able to do anything about it. At that time, there would be a lot of trouble. Woody, you have to think about it carefully. When Heavenheart saw this, his expression changed and he wanted to fly towards him. Little junior sister, let's not get involved. This Invincible battle law is a troublemaker. Behind her, a middle-aged man immediately pulled Tion Xian's arm and shook his head at her. Miss, the other party is the 8 desolations. If you really anger the 8 desolations, even the Water God Emperor will have to pay a price. The other middle-aged man hurriedly said to Tianxin. This, Heaven Xian's face was filled with anxiety as he looked at Jean Fei Wudi uneasily. It's all right. I'd like to see who dares to touch Boss Wang with me around. Jean Fa said to Tion Xian and the others. He snorted lightly and stared at the disciples of Ba Huang. Boss Wang, find a chance to escape. I'll help you. At the same time, Invincible battle law transmitted his voice to Wang Xian. Wang Xian looked at Invincible battle law before looking at Yelu Ying and the rest of his senior and junior sisters. He revealed a faint smile. Currently, he had the combat strength of an emperor god. However, he was severely injured after being attacked by the tree. Last time, he could recover from his previous injury in about a day. But now, he would need at least a month. This was secondary. Now that he was severely injured, his combat strength was only around the 9th level God King realm. Of course, if he exerted his full strength, he could still maintain the offensive strength of an emperor for a period of time. But after exerting his full strength, his injuries would undoubtedly worsen. Therefore, to him, it was unnecessary. The Sky Array Orochi would arrive soon. All he had to do was wait here. Moreover, seeing some fleas jumping around in front of him was like watching monkeys. Invincible battle law was still the same as before. He was very loyal. In the past, when he was being hunted down, this lad had helped him several times. He would always remember this favor in his heart. The behavior of Yelu Ying and the rest of her senior and junior sisters surprised Wang Xian. Facing a force like Ba Huang, they actually dared to stand in front of him. Someone worth befriending. Just like what a rich second-generation heir on Earth had said. I don't care if others are rich when I make friends. Anyway, none of them are as rich as me. Wang Xian was the same now. I don't care if others are strong or weak when I make friends. Anyway, none of them are as strong as me. Of course, these words were a little arrogant. But in the entire starry sky, he was qualified to say so. Phew. Beside Wang Xian, Yelu Ying and the rest heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Invincible battle law. His appearance could greatly reduce the pressure on them. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Humph, there's no need to talk nonsense with him. He killed our disciples and we don't care what faction he is from. Moreover, he killed our disciples. We will ask the Sanctuary and the Water God Emperor if he wants to start a war. But suddenly, at this moment, a dignified voice was heard. Hearing this voice, the cultivators from 8 Wilderness immediately showed respect on their faces. Guardians, Elder Zhou, Elder Lai, and the rest immediately shouted respectfully. Wang Wang Wang. At this time, another 3 figures rushed over. 3 old men. The old man in the middle held a horsetail whisk in his hand and had a cold look on his face. The other 2 also exuded a terrifying aura. 3 Divine King Pinnacle experts and 3 guardians of Ba Huang. His words made everyone's expression change. The arrival of the guardians of Ba Huang did not surprise the surrounding people, because there were guardians in the windless forest. When the signal flare was fired, the guardians of Ba Huang had enough time to rush over. But to everyone's surprise, the guardians of Ba Huang were so domineering. They wanted to kill that young man and questioned the Water God Emperor of the Sanctuary if they wanted to start a war. As the guardians of Ba Huang, they were already at the top of Ba Huang. They were also qualified to say such words. In particular, the old man in the middle holding the horsetail whisk was the descendant of a god emperor of Ba Huang. Damn, Boss Wang, let's get ready to escape. Invincible battle law said anxiously when he saw the guardians of Ba Huang coming over. Chapter 2854. You can search Fort Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System on Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. The protector of Bahuang had arrived and did not put Invincible in his eyes. Invincible knew that there might be trouble ahead. This was the only way. When Yelu Ying and the rest saw the protector of Bahuang, their faces turned pale. Escape? In this 8 desolation 6 directions, you killed our disciples and now you want to escape? The protector of Bahuang with the horsetail whisk in his hand sneered when he heard Invincible's words. Invincible, don't cause trouble for your master and don't think that your master can protect you if you make a mistake. Even your master, the Divine Emperor, can't protect you if you make an enemy out of Bahuang. He stared coldly at Invincible Fighter and warned in a low voice. This has nothing to do with my master. It's all my own doing. Invincible raised his head and snorted coldly as he spoke. Hee, if it's your own fault for being invincible, then we'll kill you. The protector of Bahuang stared at Invincible coldly and said coldly. In their opinion, without the Water God Emperor, provoking their 8 desolates alone was no different from courting death. Invincible, come over here. We won't be involved in this. Tianxin was anxious when he heard the protector of Bahuang. He immediately said to Invincible, Heaven's will, how could someone as loyal as me, Invincible Fighter, do something so cowardly and cowardly? Let me teach you guys a lesson today. Invincible said coldly. Brother Invincible is too loyal. But I'm afraid we're in big trouble. Let's contact his senior brothers and get them to contact the Divine Emperor. Oh no, our brother Invincible is stubborn. Even 10 bulls can't pull him back. If Bahuang really wants to be ruthless, brother Invincible is doomed. The young men's faces were filled with anxiety as they spoke. This Invincible is really loyal. He would rather offend Bahuang to protect that young man. If Invincible really offends Bahuang, the protector of Bahuang might really kill him. Who's that young man? Why haven't I seen him before? I'm afraid he's not simple to be protected by Invincible and a disciple of the sacred sect. Not simple? How could he be more powerful than Bahuang? But that young man's expression didn't change. In the surroundings, more and more people were attracted by the signal flare, and they were all discussing in low voices. We must kill that brat. Kill everyone who dares to help him. The protector with the horsetail whisk gave the order with a cold expression. Hearing this order, Invincible's expression changed slightly. Master is here, Master, you're finally here. However, at this moment, a surprised voice came from the side. Hearing this voice, everyone was slightly taken aback. Another one? A saint-level expert? Everyone quickly looked in the direction of Yelu Ying's gaze. Buzz. Right at this moment, a graceful and elegant woman dressed in green flew over to them. The woman didn't look young. She walked in the windless forest and came before Wang Xian in the next moment. The eyes of the 3 protectors froze when they saw the woman. Sanctuary Hong Fengyan. Hong Fengyan looked at Wang Xian, who was heavily injured, and took out an elixir pill for him. She turned around, looked at the 3 protectors, and cupped her fists. Along the way, Yelu Ying and the rest had already told her the details through the communication stone plate. The protectors of the sanctuary want to protect the person who killed our disciples? Or is he also a disciple of the sanctuary? Facing off at the same level, the protectors of the sanctuary took a few steps forward and fixed their eyes on Hong Fengyan. Although I'm a protector of the sanctuary, this has nothing to do with the sanctuary. Moreover, he isn't a disciple of the sanctuary. I wonder how you guys can resolve this feud? Hong Fengyan looked at them emotionlessly. With a wave of her arm, more than 100 pieces of wind jade flew towards them. Among the wind jade, there was a divine weapon, a pinnacle undying god king divine weapon. Jesus, what a generous offer! Taking out such a valuable item in exchange for the young man's life. This seems like the young man is very important to the protector of the sanctuary. A pinnacle undying god king divine weapon. If the protectors of the sanctuary agree, they'll be making a killing. Some people around them were discussing in low voices. Even the eyes of the experts from Ba Huang lit up and their hearts were shaken. Wow, Boss Wang, who is this beautiful big sister? Invincible Battle Law was slightly surprised by Hong Fengyan's generosity and winked at Wang Xian. Wang Xian glanced at him and ignored him. He took out the communication stone plate and sent another message. They were a little slow. The lives of the disciples of 8 Desolation cannot be compared to some inanimate objects. If we accept it, won't we be able to kill the disciples of 8 Desolation as we please after taking some treasures? Humph, you really think our Ba Huang is some small sect? We must kill him. No one can protect him. Let's see who dares to help him. The Octoterra protector with the horsetail whisk stared at Hong Fengyan and ordered, boom boom boom. The 8 Desolation disciples, who were already prepared, immediately unleashed their powerful auras. Boom. However, when their auras were released, Hong Fengyan's body also surged with a powerful aura. I must protect him today. The surrounding people seemed to have heard the howling of the wind. Hong Fengyan seemed to be standing in the center of the howling wind as she stared coldly at everyone from 8 Desolation. Fine, fine, fine. If you want to protect him, then die. The 3 protectors of 8 Desolation revealed murderous intent in their eyes. The old man with the horsetail whisk in the middle moved and attacked Hong Fengyan. The other 2 protectors followed closely behind. Oh no, they're going to fight. Peak Divine King Realm combat power. Let's retreat. When the surrounding crowd saw this, their faces changed drastically as they roared loudly. Invincible, come over. Junior sister, let's retreat. Invincible Battle Law is courting death. Does he really think he can do whatever he wants just because he has an Emperor Godmaster? Junior sister, it's better if you don't come into contact with such reckless people in the future. Tianxin shouted at Invincible Battle Law. The 2 middle-aged men behind her immediately carried her and retreated. Fuck Boss Wang. Let's prepare to escape later. We're good at escaping. Invincible Battle Law's mouth twitched as he spoke to Wang Xian. Wang Xian stood there without moving or paying attention to Invincible Battle Law. Looking at Hong Fengyan, who was protecting him, his eyes flickered. When Hong Fengyan saw the 3 protectors of 8 Desolation charging at her, her expression didn't change at all. In the sky above her, a tornado formed. In the next moment, the tornado slowly solidified into a green gourd. Latest chapter of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System. Reading link of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System /39,000/download link of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System /39,000/reading link of Invincible Dragon Cultivation System /39,000/ for convenience of reading next time. You can click on the collections button below to record this time. We, the 8 Desolation, must kill him. For read the record. If you like Invincible Dragon Cultivation System. Chapter 2855. A green gourd floated in the air above Hong Fengyan. The green gourd looked like it was real. The patterns on it were clear and contained the Great Tao. At the front, the 3 protectors of Bahuang saw the green gourd above Hong Fengyan, but their expressions didn't change at all. They were all peak Immortal King experts and they didn't take Hong Fengyan seriously at all. Just then, the gourd aimed at the 3 protectors of Bahuang and opened its lid. In the next moment, 3 sharp swords shot out at a terrifying speed. The speed was 10 times faster than the 3 elders of Bahuang. What? When the 3 elders of Bahuang saw the 3 sharp swords flying towards them, their faces changed. They hurriedly raised the weapons in their hands. However, as soon as they raised their weapons, their expressions stiffened. The 3 sharp swords had pierced through their arms. The faces of the 3 protectors of the Octoterra wilderness stiffened and their eyes were filled with shock. At the front, Hong Fengyan smiled faintly when she saw the scene. What? How is this possible? 1 against 3 and she injured the 3 protectors of Bahuang instantly. By the looks of it, the Sacred Region Protector did it on purpose. If she had hit their vital parts, the 3 protectors of Bahuang would have been severely injured. SSS, the Sacred Region Protector, is so powerful. Isn't she a peak Immortal King expert? The surrounding experts, be it the experts of Bahuang or the surrounding experts, all looked at the scene in shock. Just then, above Hong Fengyan, The green gourd shone with a green luster and a divine aura surrounded it. It accentuated Hong Fengyan's beauty. The protector of Bahuang with the horsetail whisk widened his eyes and stared at Hong Fengyan in disbelief. You're half a step into the Emperor God realm. After a few seconds, the protector of Bahuang with the horsetail whisk spat out a few words. Half a step into the Emperor God realm. This meant that she had already comprehended the mystique of an Emperor God. All she was lacking was the upgrade of her Eternity Kingdom. Upgrading the Eternity Kingdom to the Void Kingdom. This was also a threshold, and the upgrade required a large amount of treasures. For ordinary experts, they would need to find treasures to build their own divine kingdom. But for a sanctuary powerhouse, if a sanctuary discovered that a protector had reached such a realm, they would open their treasure vault and build a void divine kingdom for him. It would only take a very, very short time. In other words, Hong Fengyan had already taken half a step into the God the Arch realm. The other half step was very easy for him. She, who had already taken half a step into the God King realm, was far from what a peak stage God King could compare with. I'll take him away. If you want to look for him in the future, you can look for me, Hong Fengyan. Hong Fengyan looked at them and said plainly, Our master is about to advance to God Emperor realm. Great, this is great. Behind Hong Fengyan, Yelu Ying and her junior brother were extremely excited when they saw this. Now that their masters had advanced into the God Emperor stage, their statuses would rise as well. After all, there were dozens of sanctuary protectors, but only a few God Emperors. As the disciple of the God Emperor, who would dare to provoke him in the sanctuary? Awesome, Brother Wang Xian. I didn't expect you to have such a powerful backer. Ha! Upon seeing Hong Fengyan displaying her prowess, Invincible Zhan was equally excited as he laughed heartily at Wang Xian. Wang Xian stood at the side and smiled plainly. It seemed like her comprehension was pretty good. She had taken this step in such a short time. The three protectors of 8 Desolation and the group of disciples looked extremely embarrassed. There was no way they could keep a quasi-God Emperor. Once she really advanced into the God Emperor stage in the future, it would be worth it for 8 Desolation to find trouble with her. In particular, once she returned to the sanctuary would at most compensate them with some treasures and let the matter rest. Let's go. Hong Fengyan swept her gaze across the group before turning to Wang Xian and the rest. A surge of energy enveloped all of them, and they flew out of the windless forest. If you bring the enemy who killed our disciples away, you will be the enemy of 8 Desolation. Think about the price you will have to pay. The 3 protectors of 8 Desolation and the group of disciples looked embarrassed as they bellowed. All they could do was watch and make some superficial threats. They couldn't beat her. Hong Fengyan didn't bother about them. As long as they left, the matter would be settled easily. The experts of 8 Desolation understood, and so did she. Rumble. Before Hong Fengyan led Wang Xian and the group out of the area, a terrifying aura came pressing down on them. A majestic aura. A green-colored figure and a stern-looking old man looked around. When he saw the figure flying out from the depths of the windless forest, he immediately chased after it. However, he was attacked by the trees of the windless forest and his speed was greatly reduced. He only arrived here now. However, he had already lost his target after such a long time. This caused his expression to turn extremely ugly. Lord Feng, stop them. Stop them. The 3 protectors of 8 Desolation's eyes lit up when they saw an Emperor God. They shouted immediately. This majestic figure was the Emperor God of 8 Desolation. What a coincidence! Oh no, pretty sister, run. It's the Emperor God of 8 Desolation. Invincible Warrior's eyebrows twitched violently when he saw the figure. He shouted loudly. Hong Fengyan's expression changed drastically. The gourd above her head dispersed and a terrifying energy covered her body. She was prepared to fly at full speed. The Emperor God of 8 Desolation, who was called for help, was taken aback when he heard the voice from below. He immediately looked towards where Wang Xian and the group were. In the next moment his eyes lit up as he stared deadly at Wang Xian. This figure was the one that flew out from the depths of the windless forest. This time, there wasn't a single Fengyu in the windless forest. It was very strange. Perhaps the secret was with this person. Rumble. The next moment, he didn't hesitate and cast a wind wall to block the surroundings. As an experienced emperor god, it only took him a moment to cast the wind wall. Rumble. Hong Fengyan's expression changed drastically when she saw this. She condensed the law of wind into a wind drill and attacked the wind wall. In an instant, a hole appeared in the wind wall. When the emperor god of 8 Desolation saw that his defense was broken, his expression changed. Universal wind prison. He let out a low roar with embarrassment. The wind changed drastically and a cage appeared, sealing off a radius of 1,000 kilometers around them. Hong Fengyan's pupils shrank slightly when she saw this scene. Her expression slowly turned ugly. Lord Feng, one of them, killed a disciple of 8 Desolation. Seeing that they were sealed by the wind prison, the 3 protectors of 8 Desolation were excited and shouted immediately. The error-free chapters of Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System will continue to be updated on Mobile Play Bar. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please collect and recommend Mobile Play Bar. Please collect if you like Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System. Invincible Divine Dragon Cultivation System Mobile Play Bar updates the fastest. Chapter 2856. Shit. We're doomed. How did we encounter an emperor god from 8 Wilderness? Damn it. When he saw the wind prison surrounding them, Invincible's face revealed an anxious expression. They were 8 Wilderness celestial emperors. Once they were caught, no one could save Wang Xian. Even his master couldn't save them. Shit. Yelu Ying and the other disciples' faces turned pale as they looked around anxiously. Sir God Emperor, can we make a deal? I can owe you a favor. Hong Fengyan clenched her fist as she spoke to the emperor god from 8 Wilderness. The emperor god from 8 Wilderness looked at Hong Fengyan with surprise. He looked to the side and raised his eyebrows when he saw the corpse. Recalling what the 8 Wilderness disciples had said, he squinted his eyes. Who killed them? He asked coldly. Lord Feng, it's that young man. He's the one who killed our disciples. The disciple of Upper Water God Emperor is Invincible Warrior, and the Protector of Sanctuary wants to protect him. The Protector of Sanctuary is already a half-step God Emperor. The 8 Wilderness Protector with the horsetail whisk immediately reported to him. Emperor God Wind Destruction is here. I didn't expect an Emperor God from 8 Wilderness to arrive at this time. They can forget about escaping now. That young man is probably going to be killed. Not necessarily. The Protector of Sanctuary is willing to owe a favor to that young man. The Protector of Sanctuary is about to become an Emperor God. A favor from an Emperor God is worth a lot. I wonder how Emperor God Wind Destruction will handle this. As the 8 Wilderness Protector reported, the surrounding crowd discussed in astonishment. This matter was full of twists and turns. It involved the last disciple of Upper Water God Emperor, Invincible Warrior, the Protector of Sacred Feather, an existence that was one step away from becoming an Emperor God. But now that Emperor God Wind Destruction was here, things would probably come to an end. It's definitely him. Emperor God Wind Destruction squinted his eyes and fixed his gaze on Wang Xian. He was certain that this was the figure that flew out from the depths of Windless Forest Valley. However, he was surprised that this young man looked a little weak. Sir Emperor God Wind Destruction, could you let Boss Wang off for my master's sake? Don't worry, I will definitely ask my master to compensate with treasures. Invincible looked at Wind Destruction God Emperor and said respectfully. Against a God Emperor, he didn't dare to be arrogant. Well, no matter what, you have to pay the price for killing our disciples. We don't need the future God Emperor's favor, nor do we need the Water God Emperor's treasure. Hand him over now. If you try to protect him, I don't care if you're the protectors of the sanctuary or the disciples of the God Emperor. I'll kill you directly. Emperor God Tian Xie swept a glance across Hong Fengyan, Jean Fa Unrivaled and the rest before fixing his eyes on Wang Xian. If it was any other time, he might hesitate when faced with this condition. However, he had chased all the way from the depths of the Windless Forest Valley just for this figure. How could he possibly let him go? Even if he didn't kill the 8 Desolation disciple, he would still capture him. Damn it. Hearing Emperor God Wind Destruction's words, Invincible Warrior couldn't help but curse. His expression was extremely ugly. Hong Fengyan's expression changed slightly. I'll hold them back later. You escape first. I've already broken the confinement circle for you. She transmitted her voice to Wang Xian. Now, she couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If she had known earlier, she would have asked Wang Xian to return to her own holy kingdom. This wouldn't have happened. She was too careless. She thought she could bring him away with her current strength. She had not expected an God Emperor to appear suddenly. Hearing her transmission, Wang Xian couldn't help but chuckle. He took a few steps forward, looked across everyone in the 8 Desolation, and fixed his eyes on Emperor God Wind Destruction. You, Hong Fengyan, who was beside him, was taken aback. She reached out and wanted to pull him back. However, before she could react, she failed to stop him. This stunned her. I'm injured. I didn't want to make a move. Wang Xian stared at Emperor God Wind Destruction and said plainly. It was true that he didn't want to make a move. With his current injuries, he would need a month to recover completely. If he continued to fight, he might have to recuperate for a year. A year was a long time for him. Therefore, he had been watching without saying a word. If he could leave today, he would make another trip to the 8 Desolation after the Celestial Array 8 branches and the rest arrived. Now, it seemed like he had to make a move if the Celestial Array 8 branches and the rest didn't come. However, if he were to make a move, it wouldn't be that easy. However, he could see greed in Emperor God Wind Destruction's eyes. He could tell that Emperor God Wind Destruction was determined to get him. This piqued his curiosity. He didn't seem to know this guy. Huh? What's up with that young man? Why is he so calm? He doesn't want to make a move when he's injured. Is there something wrong with his brain? Is he talking to Emperor God Wind Destruction? The injuries on him seemed to be from the battle with the disciples of the 8 Desolation. Did he injure his brain? The surrounding crowd looked at Wang Xian, who was walking forward. They were taken aback and started discussing. Emperor God Wind Destruction was also taken aback as he stared at Wang Xian in confusion. Anyone who kills the disciples of the 8 Desolation is the enemy of the 8 Desolation. If you guys stand there, I'll kill you too. Emperor God Wind Destruction sensed Wang Xian's aura. He looked at Hong Fengyan and Zhan Fa Wudi as he spoke. Hong Fengyan, who was about to become an emperor god, was the last disciple of the Water God Emperor. However, that was all. If the other party didn't show any mercy, he would kill him today. What could the other party do to him? An unconcealed killing intent spread to the surroundings. Sensing the killing intent, Hong Fengyan, Zhan Fa Wudi and the rest turned pale. Big Brother Wudi, come over quickly. Come over, Big Brother Wudi. Everyone around could clearly sense the killing intent of Emperor God Wind Destruction. The 2 young men behind Tianxin shouted at Zhan Fa Wudi anxiously. Wudi, don't force yourself. Tianxin shouted at Zhan Fa Wudi with a worried look. Am I, Zhan Fa Wudi, the kind of person who is afraid of death? Zhan Fa Wudi looked at Tianxin and the rest with bloodshot eyes as he lifted his head and spoke. His words made Tianxin and the rest turn pale. Wang Xian, get ready. Hong Fengyan also wanted him to escape later. However, before she could finish her sentence, Wang Xian stopped her with a wave of his hand. I would like to witness the strength of an 8 Desolation God Emperor. At the same time, let me tell you guys. You guys are in trouble. Wang Xian's gaze fell upon Emperor God Wind Destruction with cold eyes. Emperor God Wind Destruction frowned when he saw Wang Xian staring at him fearlessly. Recalling that he flew out from the depths of the windless forest valley, he felt uncertain. In that case, show me what you're capable of. Emperor God Wind Destruction was shocked as he spoke coldly. He didn't dare to attack recklessly. Chapter 2857, Resplendent Starry Sky, Dragon King of Dragon Palace 3-inch. That young man isn't afraid of Emperor Feng Mie at all. Does he have a trump card? Emperor Feng Mie seems to be wary of that young man. What's going on? Didn't that young man get severely injured after fighting with the disciples of 8 barons? What's wrong with Emperor Fengmie now? When the surrounding crowd saw Wang Xian standing there casually and seeing the vigilant look on Emperor God Wind Destruction's face, they were slightly shocked and started discussing softly. Behind Wang Xian, Hong Fengyan frowned as she looked at Wang Xian's back. Her eyes were filled with uncertainty. To her, Wang Xian was mysterious, extremely mysterious. But she had tested his strength before. He was weaker than the Sixth Order Undying God King when they first met. Now that he was so calm when facing Emperor Fengmie, could he have a trump card? Around them, everyone watched in bewilderment. "Boss Wang, let's run." Seeing this, Invincible muttered under his breath. Wang Xian stared at Emperor Fengmie with a cold look in his eyes. Wang. But at this moment, Wang Xian felt the communication stone plate in the mother nest vibrate. There was a message from the heaven array. "Dragon King, we have sensed your location. 75 seconds. We will be there in 75 seconds. Wang Xian squinted his eyes when he saw the message. The aura around him disappeared. A smile appeared on his face as he stood there calmly. Seeing the smile on Wang Xian's face, everyone was taken aback. How could he still smile at this moment? Even Emperor God Wind Destruction felt a chill in his heart and revealed a vigilant look. The atmosphere was silent for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, Wang Xian was still standing there. His smile was gone and he closed his eyes, waiting for the time to come. 10 seconds was a long time for everyone around them. Didn't he want to witness Emperor Fengmie's strength? What's going on? Why is he standing there? Is he preparing for a big move? The surrounding crowd looked at the way he closed his eyes, and a curious look appeared on their faces. It had been 10 seconds and he was still standing there. Discussions could be heard. Emperor God Wind Destruction, who was at the front, frowned and raised his guard. But another 10 seconds passed and Wang Xian was still standing there with his eyes closed. What is this guy doing? He was heavily injured when fighting against us, the disciples of 8 Desolation, and now he still wants to fight against us? You must be pretending. 20 seconds have passed. What kind of tricks is this guy playing? Another 10 seconds passed. The group of experts and disciples from 8 Desolates was getting restless. They looked at Wang Xian, who had his eyes closed, coldly. What was this guy doing? Time ticked by. Fuck, is this guy showing off? Why are you standing there without moving? That's highly possible. I think he's just acting cool. It's been half a minute and he's closing his eyes while facing God Emperor Wind Destruction. Acting cool? I think he's trying to stall for time. He wants to see the power of the 8 Desolation God Emperor? What does he have to know? Another 10 seconds later, there was a commotion in the surroundings. He said that he wanted to experience God Emperor Wind Destruction's strength. Half a minute had passed, but he was still sitting there with his eyes closed. This is too pretentious. It's even worse than Invincible combat technique. The group of middle-aged men behind Tianxin looked at Wang Xian blankly and couldn't help but complain. They really thought that this young man would burst out a powerful attack. They didn't expect him to be showing off. God Emperor Wind Destruction stood there with impatience in his eyes. He stared at Wang Xian with murderous intent in his eyes. Just now, he had seen this young man being sent flying out from the depths of windless Forest Valley. He thought he had a powerful trump card. However, he was still sitting there with his eyes closed. What was the meaning of this? Was he playing with him? God Emperor Wind Destruction stared coldly at Wang Xian. 10 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. Is he playing with us? The burly elder Zhou couldn't help but roar coldly. All eyes were on Wang Xian in the surroundings. At this moment, everyone felt like they were being teased. 40 seconds had passed. If he delayed it for another minute, it would be 1 minute. He was just acting cool with his eyes closed. Is this guy trying to live for a few more seconds? I think so. Is he playing this trick? There isn't any energy fluctuation from him. Is he trying to delay his death? The earlier he dies, the earlier he can reincarnate. What's the use of acting cool here? What a joke. The surrounding people couldn't help but comment as their eyes were filled with ridicule. Lord Wind. Behind God Emperor Wind Destruction, the 8 Desolation Protector with the horsetail whisk shouted as he stared at Wang Xian. 10 seconds. If you don't leave in 10 seconds, don't blame me for not showing respect to the Shang Shui Divine Emperor and the Sanctuary. God Emperor Wind Destruction's patience had run out. He stared at Zhang Fa Wudi, Hong Fengyan and gave his final warning. While they were discussing and talking, more than 10 seconds had passed. Now it was close to 60 seconds. Zhang Wudi, hurry up and come over. Brother Wudi, hurry up and come over. Otherwise, God Emperor Wind Destruction will really take action. Upon hearing God Emperor Wind Destruction's final warning, Tianxin and the rest shouted at him anxiously. Master! Yelu Ying and the rest clenched their fists as they shouted at Hong Fengyan with pale faces. Hong Fengyan stared at Wang Xian with a slight frown. She stood there without saying a word. Cough cough, Boss Wang, do we have any ideas? If we can't, we'll just run. I have a life-saving treasure that my master gave me. Seeing the situation, Zhang Fa Wudi was also anxious as he transmitted his voice to Wang Xian. He had a life-saving treasure with him, but the chances of him escaping from an emperor god were still slim. 68 seconds. Wang Xian didn't reply to Zhang Fa Wudi. Instead, he uttered 4 words plainly. Hee, you guys are really loyal. But that's fine too. Even though we weren't born in the same year and month, we can still die in the same year and month. 10 seconds had passed. God Emperor Wind Destruction swept his gaze across Zhang Fa Wudi, Hong Fengyan and the rest. Waves of terrifying aura erupted from his body. Wudi, hurry up and leave. Tianxin, who was at the side, shouted in shock. Bluff. God Emperor Wind Destruction said coldly, I've been putting on an act for more than a minute. It's worth it if I can delay my death by a minute. Behind him, the 3 guardians of 8 Desolation commented coldly. At this moment, close to 10,000 people had gathered around them. All of them were looking at Wang Xian with contempt. Initially, they weren't disgusted by this young man. However, when he stood there with his eyes closed and put on an act for more than a minute, the surrounding crowd started to look down on him. Others would at least struggle on their deathbed, but you're just stalling for time? Since you guys aren't leaving, I'll kill you guys first. God Emperor Wind Destruction waved his arm. Wind swords appeared from the wind prison that imprisoned Wang Xian and the rest. 73 seconds. Seeing the appearance of the wind swords, Wang Xian sensed the familiar aura and revealed a smile. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.